In this video, we are going to see about research methodology. First of all, the research methodology refers to the systematic theoretical analysis of the methods applied in the field of study. So, the field of study, it entirely different according to your course. For example, if it is a literature paper, normally we have to select the novels of the particular author or the novels of the same theme from a different author. It is entirely your perception. So when we select that, we have to get through the novel entirely and we have to select particular theme and we have to analysis. That is what we are doing or we will do for the literature. And the research methodology, it encompasses the strategy, techniques and tools used to collect, analysis and interpret data. For example, what are the strategies we use? For example, whether we are going to get the data from the internet or whether we are going to get the data from the primary text or the secondary text or any conversation or something from the media, Instagram. So what may be the source, but what are the strategies that we are going to use, and along with that, techniques. So what are the techniques we are going to use? Whether it can be a handwritten notes or computer notes, anything is fine according to the research methodology. But the research should be rigorous and valid. It should have the enough details not to be very overbound, and also it should not be irrelevant. It should be relevant to the subject. So there are key components of research methodology. It should be a blueprint. So we know that the blueprint is a thing that we have to stick into for any research. So the blueprint, it had to be qualitative, quantitative or mixed methods. For qualitative, the content should be very clear. It should be from for qualitative, it should be from a primary source and secondary source, and it should be from a very genuine online platform. For quantitative, it should be in numbers. That is, it should have required information for a PhD thesis, for a PG thesis. As we all know that for a PG, 35 or 40 minimum pages is enough. So for that, in order to inculcate the content into it, you have to get the according content, and also mixed methods. So what are the mixed methods that we are using? So that should also come in a components. And also data collection methods. That is, it can be a surveys or experiment or interviews or observation. The interviews is also fine. For example, if I'm taking the author of Kavita Kane, the Kavita Kane's recent interviews or what is her opinion on a subject called mythology, it is all fine. And also data analysis. So data analysis, it can be a statistical method or thematical analysis. For the literature, as I have already mentioned, thematical analysis is what we have to do. As I already mentioned in the 5 novels or 7 novels, it is about your convenience. We have to select it and we have to go through each novel individually, and we have to select 5 or 4 themes, so that with that we have to divide the chapters and we have to proceed with that. And there is another key component called sampling technique. That is, we have to select any other theme and we have to check whether the theme that we have taken is correct from the internet source or some other guidance that you have to get, or from your instructor. It is obviously your own idea. We have to collect in that also. And it is the next thing is ethical consideration, that we have to be very confidential. For example, there is a thing, when we reveal your ideas or your opinions about something to your colleague or some other person, it may reveal in their research paper. So you have to be very confidential, and the confidential, it is also matter in the author's own perception. That is, their own biography may not to be that much of a debate in your conversation, in your thesis. So you have to be whether consider your own thematical analysis alone. So that these are the key components. And what is the importance of research methodology in literature? So research methodologies play a crucial role in literature studies by providing the scholars with the tools and the framework. So what are the tools? It can be about the taking notes or writing graphs, and a lot of tools that they have discussed in the research methodologies, along with the frameworks. So where we have to start, and what are the things that we have to do while considering the research methodology or while considering your research. So what are the things that we have to use? So these are the things that they have discussed detailedly in the research methodology. And the importance of research methodology in literature lies in the ability to provide a structured and systematic approach to your understanding, analyzing, and interpreting literary works. So it have to be very structured. So starting from the history of the literature, you have to be very sure to take that too, and you have to be very systematic analysis. That is, it should be a consistent work. So for example, in chapter 1, the first para, it denotes about the theme of feminism. The second para should be consistent along with the theme of feminism. So there you should not use any contemporary writers or literature. You should not be like that. And it should be your own understanding. It should be understood by the fellow researchers, and it should be understood by your own instructor and the fellow scholars also. And it should be a very important part to analyze the novels. So by analyzing the themes, by analyzing the plot, by analyzing the characters, so these are the things that the research methodology will help. And it is also to interpret. So what are the things that they have interpreted in the literary works? And it ensures the systematic and rigorous analysis. That is the main importance of research methodology. So it helps in creating a structured approach to study literature. So the thing is, the literature is always to have an impact on history. So whatever the thing that happened in the history, it have an impact on the literature. So literature and history, it is always a parallel thing, because the author may be impacted by the thing that happened in the society. So there is a chance for him to make a thing that to involve in the literature. So there is always a thing. And by following the specific methods, the researchers can ensure their findings are credible, logical, and academically robust. So it can be a thing that they have to make sure it should be a logical. So maybe it can be fantasy or something, some fantastical elements may be there, but it should be a very logical thing when you are coming under the cadre of research methodology. And it is also facilitates critical interpretation. So there are different methods for the exploration of the text from the varied perspectives, such as the historical methodologies, feminist methodologies, and post-colonial methodologies. So for the historical methodologies, the relationship between the history and the literature context. So I have already mentioned that the literature and history is a parallel thing which cannot be separated. For example, if there is a post-colonial element, for example, after independence, there is a novel called Train to Pakistan. So the elements of separation, all the things are mentioned because that's a reality that happened during the independence and the separation of the India and Pakistan. So all the realities are there. If we are taking that novel, it can be considered as, okay, this is a reality, they have taken it. And for the next methodology, that is feminist methodology, they have focused on the gender dynamics and the representation. There is a thing that if there is a female author, they always consider the perceptions and the sufferings of the female. It may be a dilemma or it can be anything, but it is the usual conversation or a table conversation that always the female authors will consider the pains and the agony of the females. So it can be also a conversation to make into a research methodology. And for the post-colonial approach, investigate themes of colonization, identity, and structural identity. As we have mentioned earlier, for the post-colonial approaches after the colonization, their identity changes. So there can be a search of identity and the cultural identity. Even the cultural identity changes. Before colonization, they may belong to different identity, different culture. But after colonization, it may differ. So they may be suffered to inculcate that kind identity into their own. And this diversity broadens our understanding of literary works and their reference. So it can be a different to identity. For example, if I'm Indian, so I can have like opinion on the American culture, their identity. It may be different for me to for example adopt those identity. So it can also broadens our literature studies, and it is also enhances the originality and creativity. So research methodology will always involve the person in exploring their own creativity. For example, if we take a book called Sita's Sister by Kavita Kane and Karna's Wife by Kavita Kane. So Kavita Kane is an author who originally have much interest on methodology along with epics. So, not methodology but mythology with epics. So, she always considered that the character that is not noticed by many people, she take that character and explore those character and give the readers. So that is her own creativity. Likewise, the same two scholars can interpret a same book in a different manner. So research methodology can enhance the students or the scholars to make their own creativity. For example, I can take that book and I can consider that why should I consider the Karna is a least portrayed character, and I can do a research on Karna, or some other scholar can take Arjuna in Karna's wife and take that character and consider that the Arjuna is much more important than the Karna, and take Arjuna in that research. So it is entirely depends on the scholar's creativity, and the methodology encourages novel interpretations and comparative studies, of course. So I have already mentioned the Karna's wife is about the two characters, that Arjuna and Karna. It can also be considered as a comparative study. For example, comparative studies between Arjuna and Karna, or the comparative studies between Draupadi or Urvi. Urvi is the Karna's second wife, and Draupadi is as we know that it is Arjuna's wife. So we can also compare the agony and the pain that is undergone by the Urvi and also the Draupadi. It is also the own perspective and the creativity of the scholar, and it is enriching the field of the literary scholar. Yes, the book can also enrich the field of the literary scholarship, and it is also builds the interdisciplinary connection. For example, psychology, sociology, and philosophy. So psychology, it is analyzing the characters and motivations and behavior. For example, we can consider the Shakespeare's Othello, for example. So Othello is a Moor, and he is considered to be the king who is very desperately in love with the Desdemona. And for example, we can consider the another character called Iago, who is known for his cunningness, and he know how to ask the other character to deal with other emotions, other other things to make what he wants. So he's completely pastoring or pampering Othello to avoid Desdemona, to make him believe that Desdemona is cheating Othello. So this can also be the analysis or the study of the psychology, that is of characters. And sociology, it is also examining sociological norms and values reflected in the text. So what are the norms, what are the morals that they have reflected in the text? For example, we can take Sudhamurthi's Mahashweta, for example, and there they have reflected that leukodema patients, for example. So leukodema, it is nothing but a skin disease, but people consider that the outer appearance is more important than anything, in that the character doctor, for example, doctor Anand, even though he is a doctor, but he considered that the physical appearance is only important to himself. So in order to avoid that, that character Anubhava make herself proud of many things by enacting, by making a drama. So these are the things that they have taken to teach a lesson to the society, by considering that not only the physical appearance is important, but also what we are good at. So we should not treat others by treating others slowly by their physical appearance. We should not do that. And also philosophy. Philosophy is exploring existential themes and moral dilemmas. As I have discussed earlier, Mahashweta is a good example for these two. and it is also promotes contextual understanding. So literature is often shaped by its social, political and cultural ideas. So literature is also a part to be dealt for the social, cultural and political ideas, and methodologies like cultural studies and discourse analysis helps in situating text within their respective contexts, revealing deeper layers of the meaning. So when we have an idea of the contextual ideas of the books or novels, we can go for the respective context and we can go for the meaning more deeper. So it may not be a shallow idea, it may be a deeper idea to convey the meaning. For example, if we take a poem, it have a different meaning when we go for the deep understanding. For reading a line, it may show a different meaning. For the depth understanding, we have to go for the analysis. So research methodology will also help for the deeper understanding. It also encourages ethical research practice. So the researchers should be very ethical. For example, proper citation and the acknowledgement of the sources. It should be a proper citation, because there may be a scholar following your own theme, so he may notice your thesis so much effective, so he may use your own citation. So it should be an ethical process to give your citation at a best, or it should be a true. And the next thing is respect for the integrity of the text and the author's intent. So it is the importance of the scholars, or it is the duty of the scholars to respect the integrity of the text and also the author's intent. So it is in the hand of the scholars to give the proper intent of the authors to the readers. So it is also in the hands of the scholars. So the next thing is taking notes. So what are the methods of taking notes? So as I have already mentioned, we can use handwritten notes or computer notes. For the computer, it is a safer side to store the file in more than many places, or it should have a backup to that, so that if it gone missing, we can have a second source to notice that. And there is a type of note taking, that is three major type of note taking. The first one is summary. As we know that summary is recording or noting only the general ideas of large amounts of material. And for the next one is paraphrase. So we know that term by the Shakespeare's all the works, as we have know that Shakespeare's work was written far before. So it is important to have a paraphrase to note the exact wording. So for the paraphrase, there is exact wording where you need to paraphrase and to restate the material in your own wordings. So you have to take it in your own wordings. And the next thing is quotation. So these are the three things: summary, paraphrase and quotation. And quotation, we have already know that in order to make an effective addition to your paper, you can transcribe the material's quotation as it is by word and comma to comma, comma for comma to the paper. So the one thing is, for quotation you can use the online sources, but you have to be very sure about the genuine of the online source, as everything is not genuine. So you have to check whether it is genuine or not. And in order to relocate the source of books or the primary source, you have to record both the page number or the reference numbers. So for example, if you are noting or taking a book, you have to write the author's name, the complete detailed title and the reference number or the page number. So in order to check or in order to cross check the book, you can easily locate with these numbers and with these information. And using a computer for note taking, you can also use a word processor for taking a notes, that is a word processor for taking a notes in handy. While you are doing the research, you may find a situation where there is a no system in the library or some other place, so that you have to be very sure to take notes in both manner, that is use a hand and also a computer when it can be changed according to the availability. So when you are using a computer, be aware that you have to use a word processor and make a separate file for the each sources. For example, take a file for a primary source and the second file for a secondary source and the online sources, and for the thesis and for the other papers, make a separate file for that and always have a backup. And for the short paper, you can take a single file so that you can like go through, or you can take all the notes in that same file itself. And for the thesis paper or for a long paper, you can have a many sources, but kindly have a backup of it so that you can make use of it in a if it is missing or something error happen, you can always have a backup. And for the another strategy, what you have to do is you can write a summaries and paraphrases by hand, and you can go for the quotation by the internet sources. So that when you have to copy two times, there is, you can avoid making mistakes. So for writing, there is no making mistakes. Either way, you can avoid a mistake. So the thing is, you can't make mistakes while writing, but you can avoid it. So we have to go for the opinion of avoiding the mistakes. So kindly go to it. Kindly do it. And for the next thing is amount and accuracy for the note taking. So you have to do it, so you don't have to worry that when you are taking the work for very too little or very too deep. So either way, you have to concentrate on it. Can be a thorough and the concise. So it should be very thorough and it should have a details of stick to it. When you thought, or when you have the think, or when you thought that you have too much